Well, this thing's starting to look like a rabbit cage. Hey friends, welcome back to the homestead. Back out here at the rabbit hutch, making slow progress. It's starting to feel like a chore. Honestly, it's probably just because I haven't been very motivated. Yeah, every once in a while, when you just aren't motivated to do something, it doesn't really matter. You just got to do it. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're just gonna do it, get some of these hutches built. I would like to get the frame of the hutch put together so that I can kind of understand how it's going to go, and then we can wrap it in wire and make sure that that everything's going to be safe. The bunnies aren't going to be uncomfortable, and one of the goals is to have as little exposed wood on the inside of the cage as possible. So we've got to wrap everything with the wire from the inside, which I think that I have a plan as far as how I can do that, putting the panels together and then getting that done. So we'll see. But for now, let's go ahead and tack together some of these frames. So the cage wire that I've got is a 30-inch roll of 1/2 inch by 1 inch 16 gauge wire. 1/2 inch by 1 inch is ideal for the rabbits because it is enough room for the droppings to fall through, but it's small enough to where they're not going to get sores on their feet, and it'll be uncomfortable for them to run around, as well as babies aren't going to slide through any holes or anything like that. So the width or the depth of our actual cage areas will be right at 30 inches, and we're going to use the most expensive building material known to man, as well as the lowest quality, picked up from Home Depot. It seems like they picked out the very worst of the worst for me this go around. So, but it is what it is. We'll make do with it. So we'll have a front and a back, and this will just create a boxed frame, and then we'll have a slat on each end, and then one in the middle, or two in the middle, I guess, for each cage section, because we'll have one cage section, two cage section, and then number 3. So the very first thing that we've got to do is some math to figure out how long these cross sections need to be. And if we're at 30 inches total, these two together equal 2 7/8. So if we've got 30 minus 2 7/8 should be 27 1/8, right? 27 1/8 plus 1 7/8, 2 7/8. Yep. So we'll go ahead and measure this out to 27 1/8 inches. Just mark it on both sides. Draw a line right there. And we'll cut that, and we'll use that as a template to cut 1, 2, 3 more. Got the basic frame size of the cages. Now we need to put the center supports. They'll kind of mark out where the individual cages are going to go. All right, so here is our SketchUp drawing. As you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3 there separated out on the bottom. So let's go to the back here. We can probably see it a little bit better. All right, so let's grab a little measuring tape tool and then just measure from this inside point there to that that inside point to that inside point right there. 29 3/4. All right, I can't remember why they weren't all equal, but it was probably for some good reason, and I can't remember what that is. So I'm just going to go with our plan and trust that I knew what I was talking about. So go ahead and mark that at 29 3/4. That's going to be the base of our first cage, and I'd like to paint it first before I put wire on it. That way it kind of seals the wood in and protects it from any kind of urine or things, and painting it after the metal is on there is going to be a little bit more difficult. Getting painted.
You want me to do it?
Do you want to do it?
I will.
Got the bottom frame all painted, sealed up, fairly dry. Now we have to attach the 14 gauge wire fencing to the bottom, and then we can overlay the 1/2 inch by 1 inch rabbit netting or rabbit fencing on top of that. So the first problem is the 14 gauge is a little bit too big, so we'll have to cut that down or figure out the best way to go about doing this. We've got this first layer of fence down on the frame. We just cut it down to size, a little bit oversized, and then I lined up this corner and tacked it about every foot with these 3/4 inch fencing staples. Just hammered those into place. Just have to do the center rungs now. So we've got all the way around the outside edge, pulled it tight, and now these will just add a little bit more security, keep it from moving too much. And that'll act as a kind of a base for the lighter gauge wire to hold on to. Now we can just go around the edge and snip off the excess with our wire snips. And then bend the edges in so that we don't slice into ourselves. Now that we've got our 14 gauge fencing down, now we're going to have to cut our 16 gauge rabbit wire down to our 8-foot size. This is a 10-foot roll. Now I'm not certain how important the orientation of this wire is, but what I've seen on some cages that we already have is they put the narrower wires on the top. And that way, in my theory, is that there's less pressure being put on the rabbit's feet and it doesn't cause as much strain and stress or sores. Good gracious, this stuff is stiff. I guess that's a good thing. Bo, if he lets me. Right? And I can't do that. I have 2 hours, but not. So now what we're doing is we've got the 1/2 inch by 1 inch wire fencing or rabbit fencing laid down. We're just tacking it all around the edges every couple inches with this T50 staples. These don't hold super tightly, but we're gonna have another fence or another panel that's gonna be on top of that screwed in, so it'll kind of sandwich the fence in between the 2 pieces of wood and the 2 frames, and that should do a pretty good job of keeping everything where it's supposed to be. Almost. I think I underestimated how tedious of a job that was, but it is done. We have 2 layers of wire mesh. Honestly, I don't think that the 14 gauge is necessary. I'll leave it on this one, and we'll put this one on the bottom just to make sure that no larger predators get through there. But this 16 gauge wire is actually pretty stiff, and I don't think it's offering any additional support to have the 14 gauge under there. So on the second cage setup that goes up on top, we'll leave that 14 gauge off and see how it fares, see which one does better, and I'll let you know. We've got our base all wired up and everything. Now we're gonna build the front of the cage in that panel. Hey! All right, so we've got the base of our cage here. It's 30 inches deep. Now the front of it's gonna sit 24 inches high. So we'll go ahead and build the frame of that. And hopefully that should go a little bit faster as far as wiring it up, because that was a pain.
Wow.
We've got all of our panels built for at least the first cage. So we've got the bottom panel, the side panels, the front panel, and then the rear is going to be a solid piece of plywood or beadboard. We painted them. My wife did a great job of that, and then she started painting everything else, including the dog.
This is a pretty dog.
So now we're going to go ahead and attach these together in such a way that we have no exposed wood on the inside of the cages.
Hey, Daddy.
So we got the 3 caged sides all screwed on and attached. I'll bring you over here and show you kind of what we're looking at. So with this setup, the wire goes all the way down to the edges, so there's no exposed wood, and they can't chew onto that that support. And that way, all the droppings and everything just go straight down, and we don't have to worry about landing on top of the wood there. And this stuff should all be secure. We'll have a 18-inch door going right there. I think it should work out quite nicely. Well, this thing's starting to look like a rabbit cage. I just got to measure the back so this back piece of plywood is going to be 21 inches. Not too heavy.
She's going to actually.
Okay.
How are you doing this?
Well, you went inside to
All right, friends. Looks like we have something that is resembling a rabbit cage. And that was a lot more work than I was expecting it to be. It does not look like much, but all the tedious little cutting the wires and screwing things together. But I think it came together really nicely. All of the wire is butted together really tight so that there's no exposed wood on the inside for them to chew on. We got everything painted, much to my dislike, but it was necessary. We don't want bacteria and things to be able to seep into the pores of the wood once we get the rabbits in there, because then that makes it really difficult to clean. So this will make it a little bit easier to clean, a little bit easier to keep sanitary, and then we've got that smooth finish on the top so that the next cage that goes above it, their droppings can drop down on that and slide off the back. And hopefully we'll have some kind of catchment system so that we can harvest the droppings, use it for the garden, and other compost. Well, that's about all the time that I've got for you, but thank you guys so much for watching. If you found this video informative or entertaining in any way, please hit the thumbs up, let me know that you liked it. And if you've not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing and see more of what we have going on here on the homestead. And hopefully on the next video, we'll be installing some hutches. All right.
that painting is to whose dismay?
To my dismay. I did not want to do it, but it needed to be done.